I am very excited to introduce today's guest preacher, Ramon. Brian hails from the Dominican Republic, where he was born and raised. As a young child, he was interested in playing professional baseball and got pretty far in that pursuit, but realized that he was being called to do something different, to work in the church as a missionary, and so he went to seminary. He helped to plant a church in the Dominican Republic and to welcome international missionaries who are there doing humanitarian work. After serving time as a pastor of a church there, he felt the need to take a break and to pursue a different field, working in information and computer sciences. And with the support of actually a family from Village, came here to the U.S. about 18 months ago to enter a master's program at UMKC. Brian has preached many different sermons in his life, but this is his first sermon in English today. So let's give him a round of applause. This is pretty big. And so, Brian, we are so excited for you to be here. One last thing. Brian is one of our 2022 Daniels Scholars, and so we are so glad to get to support him as he continues to find ways to pursue his vocation and to serve God. So again, welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having me here today. That was a great introduction, and I want to let you know that my family is here with me. I saw them. Oh, they're right there. So please say hi. They are the people that make me being here happen in many ways, and just want you to know. So I want to go to the Bible real quick. So let's go to Genesis 22nd, and I'm going to be reading a passage that I feel is powerful, and we're going to go from there, okay? Now, after these things, God tested the faith and commitment of Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he answered, here I am. God said, take now your son, your only son, the son of the promise, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham got up early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took two of his young men with him and his son Isaac, and he split the wood for the burnt offering, and then he got up and went to the place of God, which God had told him. Amen. So as you heard, I was born in the Dominican Republic, to the eastern of the country. I am the second of three children, which means that I was never a troublemaker, and my mom never went to the principal office. Well, at least I want to believe so. At the age of 8 years, I met a neighbor living in front of my house across the street, and he was a baseball player. He was playing baseball at a very competitive level. And he taught me how to catch ground balls. And then I started becoming really good. I was practicing in the street with just bumping the ball in the wall. And someone put an eye on me and said, like, oh, I feel like you can be a very good baseball player. So I started playing baseball when I was 8. At the age of 12, I met the Lord, and I bind my dream of being a baseball player to being a preacher as well. So my reasoning was, well, I can become like Mariano Rivera, which was a pitcher for the Yankees, or I can be an Albert Pujols, and then use that influence to reach people and change their life. It turned out that it didn't work out, so I decided to pursue something else. And I preached my first sermon when I was 15, and I realized that I could talk to people and inspire people, and I didn't need to have influence or anything of that sort. So I went to seminary for 4 years. So and my background is Pentecostal. So if I start yelling or jumping here, give me some grace, okay? Bear with me. Then I was also going to college. I was supporting my family. I was doing a lot of stuff, and I got burned out at that point because I was preaching 5 times per weekend. I was being invited to several churches around the country in all the region of the Dominican Republic. And I had a few misconceptions about God and Bible and all this stuff. But I was also trying to feed my Holy Grail. And I think at this point you all know what Holy Grail is. In the old literature is that thing that provides youth. It's like a treasure that you pursue, and you're driven to achieve that goal. So my Holy Grail was approval. Why approval? Well, I grew up in a very chaotic family, and I didn't have that kind of relationship with my parents that a healthy child should have had. So I needed to do things to feel like I was noticed by people, to feel like people were paying attention to me, or to feel like I was appreciated, you know? So I was constantly doing things, just getting things and trying to be out of my house because it was so hostile, and trying to feed that approval need. I felt like performing, like preaching became more than a performing thing than a calling. And that's what I got mistaken. Because having a Holy Grail is not a bad thing, or if it doesn't become the thing that we appreciate the most, if it doesn't take our attention from God. And this is true for Abraham as well. For some people here that don't know a lot about Abraham was called by God when he was around 50, or at least theologians believe so, 50 years old, right? He was come to get out of his country, and God promised him that he will be the father of multitude. And he changed his name from Abram to Abraham. But Abraham didn't have children. He was sterile. And at the age of 75, God promised him, I'm going to give you a child. I'm going to give you the child of the promise. And from him, you're going to have kingdoms. You're going to have leaders. It's going to be a big country. What happened was that he didn't know that he needed to wait 25 years to see that promise. So along the way, pursuing his Holy Grail as well, his wife had an amazing idea. You know those ideas that women have sometimes? And she said, I have my slave. I think you can get to her and you can have a child with her. When he did so, and they had a child, but it became a problem. When the child was 13, it happened that the promise of God came true, and Sarah had a child as well. But now Sarah was worried that Abraham's attention was going to Ishmael. So that's like a big deal. That's like a dilemma. This guy that couldn't have children now has 2 children, but he had to send one away. And to start wrapping this up, what caused my attention is that the Lord said, I'm going to test Abraham's faith. I'm going to test Abraham's commitment. I'm going to ask Abraham his Holy Grail. And he talks to Abraham, and he said, I want you to take your only child. He knew it was the only child. And when he said only child, it's the child that was aligned with the promise of God. He said, take your only child, whom I know you love, and sacrifice it to me. Now, this is challenging, Really? Really, Lord? You made me wait 25 years to have a child, and now you're asking it back? Come on, I don't know if you're like me, but I kind of a little bit of control freak. And when I have waited so much for something and the Lord give it to me, I'm like, God, please, I'm in charge. I know what I'm doing. And this is very important, at least for my generation, because we kind of like the microwave things. And when I say the microwave thing, it's like instant gratification. So we like to, we're rushing to go to work and we put 45 seconds in the microwave. That's the way we like God to work with us as well. I'm going to put this prayer 25 seconds in the microwave and then I'm going to get it. Well, it turned out that the Lord asked him to sacrifice his child, but he also made him wait 3 days. So when he asked Abraham to go to Moriah, the Lord didn't say a word in 3 days. Like, how dare you, Lord? You asked me my child, and you torture me for 3 days in silence? But it's interesting that Moriah means the mountain where God sees and provides. So if he asks you your Holy Grail, and he's in silence, bear this in mind. He sees you, and he will provide. So they go along the way, and Isaac asks, Dad, I see the wood, and I see all the materials we need, but where's the offering? Poor child, he didn't know he was the offering. And Abraham said, Son, quiet. The Lord will provide for his sacrifice. He was probably really worried at that moment because the Lord didn't say anything, but he's like, am I gonna kill my only child? And he prepared the altar. Also, keep in mind when we read that he brought 2 people with him, 2 young men. And this is important because in Hebrew, the word said that we're running a race before a cloud of witnesses. Keep that in mind. Your attitude is very important when you are going to sacrifice your Holy Grail. So they're ready. He's about to kill his son. He takes the knife in his hand. But this is very important because if I am in a situation like that, I'm going to be probably losing my head. But when he's about to kill the child, the angel of the Lord appeared and said, Abraham, stop, because the Lord will provide for the sacrifice. I mean, can you really hear the Lord's voice under that amount of pressure? I don't know if I would, but he did. And what I want you to focus on today, as we wrap this up, is that giving up your Holy Grail is not really about letting it go or bringing it to the altar one time. It's about getting into agreement with God and bring it to the altar every day. Because the Lord don't want you to sacrifice it, but he wants to see your attitude. When the Lord asks you something, it's not about you giving something to the Lord. It's because he wants to give you something. So the sacrifice is an opportunity for God to provide. And this is my final thought. Paul, in my opinion, one of the greatest apostle and theologian or all the centuries, if you will, he's praying the following prayer in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. And he said, I was given a thorn in my flesh, the one which I have prayed 3 times to the Lord so that he can take it of me. But the Lord said, my grace is sufficient to you, because my power perfects in your weaknesses. But his closing sentence is what really blew my mind off. He said, so I will boast or brag about my weaknesses, because I know in my weaknesses the power of the Lord is resting on me. So whatever your Holy Grail is, it's probably a feeling of grieving or anxiety or mourning. It's probably your career. It's probably a relationship. Whatever your Holy Grail is, it's probably your money as well. Bring it to the Lord. Not that you're going to give it away, but you're going to put it in his hands. Lord, I'm willing to sacrifice this so your power may rest on me. So every time, this is your homework. Who loves homework here? Liars. I don't. Every time this week, when you wake up and we're going to pray, bring your Holy Grail to the Lord, and you will feel rested and ready to go for your next challenge. God bless you.